Let's begin with prayers. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome everyone, online, offline, and otherwise for joining, and very grateful to all of you for increasing my enthusiasm and motivating me for studying Bhagavatam every week and sharing something with all of you. So just a quick summary of what we have discussed in the last session and the sessions before we dive into the final discussion on this entire episode, this entire intrigue of the conflict between father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Shiva, Lord Shiva. Generally, there are conflicts, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. But here there is father-in-law, son-in-law conflict, and which led to the demise of Sati, right? So we will just do a quick recap and update about what has happened so far. So in the last session especially, we discussed that how all these devatas, they are very, very distraught because this very essential, important sacrifice has been brought to a halt because of this conflict and cursing, counter cursing, this kind of enmity between Daksha's camp and Lord Shiva's camp, which has led to a sabotage of the universal welfare. So the entire system is affected. Of the equilibrium of the universe is affected, and therefore they are approaching Brahmaji to intervene, to guide them. How do we set right this situation? So Brahmaji, he first of all says that how did you ever imagine that you can be happy or you can be successful while neglecting and offending a great personality like Lord Shiva, right? However sophisticated work you may be doing, however sophisticated rituals you may be doing, but if amidst all of that you fail to respect and honor a great personality, all of those efforts are going to go down the drain into failure. So having given this, like we can derive from this that the modern civilization is very advanced. There's sophisticated technology, sophisticated sciences and everything. But in many times this sophistication of science and technology is directed towards minimizing, undermining, and decrying the great personalities of which are presented in the scriptures. right? So such a civilization can't be successful or happy either, because there's offense. There's offense towards the Supreme Lord, offenses towards the Supreme Lord, offenses towards devotees, to the path of spirituality and bhakti. So therefore, here Lord Brahma is saying, how did you ever think that you can be happy? How did you ever think that you can expect the blessings of the Lord and the devotees while you are maintaining this offensive mindset? And we see that Brahmaji and Lord Vishnu had consciously abstained from appearing in this sacrifice. And when we look back in the previous sacrifice, which Daksha had conducted, and Lord Shiva, where he picked up the tiff with Lord Shiva, there Brahmaji was there. But now, seeing his behavior, he had very silently, removed himself from the sacrifice, right? Now he's saying that was the reason I was not there. Can you switch on this light? Last one. Okay, good.
Wait. Is it okay?
Okay, yes. And one thing which we can pick up from here is that, okay, Daksha had offended Lord Shiva, a great personality. So does it mean that I should just be cautious of offending great people, and I can work my way even if I offend this, the ordinary, mediocre, or commonplace devotees? No. Daksha was a great personality, and he needed a great personality like Lord Shiva to offend and lose his power and purity. We are small, and therefore, even if we offend or neglect a small personality, small devotee, we still stand a chance to lose our spiritual progress and uh, uh, position.
Like you already talked about Nandi, Daksha offending Nandi. So even like Daksha was great, but Nandi in that context, you highlighted that point.
Yes. So Nandi was hurt, and we had said that even if a small devotee is hurt, it that comes back, right? So that is always there. If you have hurt someone, we need to repay that hurt somewhere or the other. Thank you for reminding that.
So, like when Daksha behaved in such a manner, did he lose his status of a devotee?
नेहा विक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्. That on the path of spiritual progress, even a small endeavor which is performed is never lost, but it may get covered for a certain duration of time, and the facilities may be taken away. So the net loss is opportunity. The opportunity cost is very high, right? So that you can never get back. Time, once lost, never comes back. So it's more of a loss of opportunity. Then we had discussed that how Brahmaji, he took all the devatas to Lord Shiva, and there's the beautiful description of Kailasha hill, and the beautiful waterfalls and the trees and the gardens and the forests and everything. And there's this beautiful Kailash hill which has complete silence, very apt, suitable for meditation on the Lord. And Lord Shiva is sitting there in Virasana with the left leg on the right thigh and the right hand fingering the beads, in the left hand in the mudra of teaching. So he's teaching lessons to whom? To Kuvera and Kumaras. Kuvera is the lord of material opulences, He's the treasurer of the Devatas and Kumaras. They are the proprietor of spiritual opulences. They are liberated souls. So who is the student of Lord Shiva? People who have the best of material and the spiritual opulences. And that's what Sati was telling Mr. Daksha. You won't understand ever what is the opulence of my husband. He may be appearing to be very yes, dressed in a
Morbid.
morbid way or very unlikely way, but that is because he is oblivious of his externals. He is internally absorbed. So, so that description is there, and then Brahmaji starts making his prayers to appease Lord Shiva, and we discuss this beautiful verse: "Prathak diya karma drasho durashaya, parodayena arpita hrad rujo nisham, paran durukte vitudanti aruntuta, tan mavadhit daivavadat bhavadvida." He says, he talks about the thinking, feeling, and willing of offensive people. What are the thoughts, thinking? Prathak diya. This is mine, this is others. And what belongs to others will also become mine. This is the thinking, thought process, prathak diya. You always divide the world into friends and enemies. Karma drasho, always the fruitive mentality of what is in it for me. Durashaya, there's selfish mentality, selfish thoughts lead to desiring profit for oneself and loss for others. Durashaya, they can't be well wishers. So this is a thought pattern, thinking. And then feeling is parodayana arpita hrud rujo nisham. But when the reverse happens, when there is profit of others and loss of oneself, then what happens? Ruja, anger. They get feeling of anger and envy. And this is something which we see happen to Daksha. He developed envy and anger. And then willing, Paran durukte vitudanti aruntuda. Then it comes out in the form of venom to the mouth. Harsh words to hurt others. So finally, then Brahmaji says, so when someone has done all of these things, inappropriate thoughts, bad feelings, and who has such harsh speech, they have done this thinking, feeling, and willing. Now, what about the billing? Who will pay for this? So Brahmaji says they will themselves have to pay for it through the toll plaza of destiny, karma, right? You have driven through this road of offenses. You have driven through this road of envy and selfishness. Wait, for some time you may be coursing through very fast this road, 6-lane road of offenses. But soon you will encounter a toll plaza. And that toll plaza, whether you have fast tag or whatever, all balance will be emptied. And that's what happened to Daksha. So Brahmaji is saying, why do you need to Lord Shiva, why do you need to go out fishing for these kind of people? Their karma is after them. So this is how Brahmaji is saying that, oh Lord Shiva, you need not meddle with this Daksha and his activities. And in fact, he says that the response of a devotee is to forgive the person who is an offender. Why? Yasmin yada pushkara nabha maya durantya sprishthadhiya pratakdhiya drisha kurvanti tatra hi anukampaya kripam na sadho daiva balat krite kramam. So the previous verse described the mindset of an offender. This verse describes the mindset of a devotee. How does a devotee look at an offender? He sees that this is not this person who is creating this kind of offense or trouble for me. He says it is his sinful and envious mindset. Yasmin yada pushkara nabha maya, because Prishtadhiya, his intelligence has been touched by the Maya Shakti of the Lord. He's covered. Ultimately, this person is also a pure soul, part and parcel of Krishna, but currently is being manipulated by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he is acting in this way, right? I need not, I may hate the sin, but not the sinner. So that's the mindset of a devotee. And in fact, a devotee, rather than feeling hatred, he feels compassion. Kurvanti tatra hi anukampaya. He feels pity. Why is this person digging his own grave? How can I help him? So that is the mindset which Lord Brahma highlights for Lord Shiva. And now we are moving on to the last chapter of this entire episode, the 7th chapter, which talks about the sacrifice performed by Daksha. So after all of these prayers by Brahmaji and the Devatas petition, Lord Shiva says, indeed, I never took any offense because of these childish acts of these priests and the Devatas. I forgive them. Let Daksha get a goat's head. Let Pusha get back his teeth. Let Bhaga get back, the sight, and let Brigu get back his mustache, right? So he basically forgives, and he says that actually I did punish them, but this punishment was more for the purpose of correction rather than destruction. He says, I never, I didn't mind the offenses of these childish priests and devatas. So Prabhupada talks about two types of punishment. One is the punishment meted out by a conqueror, an invader, upon the invaded. Uh, we have so many invaders coming into India, and sometimes they do ghastly violence towards the invaded king. Because they get defeated, then they will do very, very unmentionable atrocities to the invaded people. They may kill them in ghastly ways, pluck out their eyes. There have been many instances, right? So that is one sort of punishment. But Prabhupada says another type of punishment which a loving mother or father will give to this child, or a well-wishing teacher may give to the student, which is geared towards uplifting the person rather than destroying the person.
That's more like reformation.
Yes.
That is revenge.
Yeah, reformation or revenge. So it is more of reforming the other person, bringing the person up. So there is a saying that you can look down on some person only if you want to bring them up. So this kind of punishment is meant for uplifting the subordinate. And in our own lives, we can see that there are instances where you feel unhappy about the behavior of someone close, maybe an equal, maybe at home, maybe a subordinate, right? So what do you do when you feel irked or irritated by the behavior of a person who is under you, whom you feel should have acted based on a higher standard, but is acting in an inappropriate way? So, what is your general response?
Irritated.
Hmm?
You get irritated.
You get irritated, and then
You get
dysfunctional in the relationship with them.
Yeah. Like also not only the relationship but individually also, like you keep thinking about what happened, and then whatever you're doing it doesn't go out well, like the way you planned it. For example, you're in your daily schedule, but then somehow you entered a stuff as a like a close one. So then you keep thinking about it, and you can't even discharge your duties properly.
Yes. So dysfunctional in one's daily activities and dysfunctional in the relationship. You become irritated. Right? So our online friends here, would you like to share something of what happens? What is your general response when you find someone close or someone who is a subordinate acting in an inappropriate way, not exactly as per the standards. I'm speaking of spiritual and devotional standards and even moral standards. What do you feel? And what do you feel like doing? And what do you end up doing? Yes, would someone like to speak up? Okay, so Mansi is saying that I get very angry, but I tend to exit the situation and not deal with the other person. So fight or flight. That response is as per psychology. Humans, when faced with a dangerous situation, they either fight it out or flight. Either fight or flight. So you either confront the other person and you have a message to give them. It's a message of reformation. But when you start speaking, there are tidal waves of anger which start kind of taking over your tongue, and you start breathing heavily. Don't you know? Have you ever seen someone else do like this? Is it that what you have learned? How in the world can you behave in this fashion? Right? And then you end up keep on adding more and more charge. Right? So that's something and then you end up thinking that it didn't go well. I actually agitated myself and agitated the other person because the kind of improvement you wanted to see in the person didn't happen. And you yourself remain irritated for a couple of days. Isn't it? So what should we do? Fight appears to be more frustrating. Then we should flight. Just as Mansi is saying, run away. Chodo yaar. Let me just live in denial. People will always remain the way they are and they are never going to change. You choose denial, but then what happens? After a couple of days, the person may repeat the same mistake again. You still live in denial or say, I'll tolerate.
Keep getting victimized.
You keep getting victimized, and then one day, the volcano has enough lava in it to completely consume the other person. So what is the way out? Either of the things don't work out. That's what we see.
It's like a common crossroad actually, like in daily life, because if you think about tolerance, then and if you try to apply the principle of tolerance, then how much should you tolerate? What should you tolerate? Because if you can't answer those questions, you keep tolerating everything, and then what would have been a strength turns into a weakness, because then people get the better of you.
Yes. No. So tolerance, rather than being a strength, becomes a weakness because you tolerate the wrong people doing the wrong things. So yes, very interesting thing. So how do I decide when to correct and when to let go? Is a science. So I'll give you a 3A formula. Anytime you feel like giving feedback, giving a correction, you should ask yourself these 3 questions. First is, do I have the right attitude, right mindset behind my entire build up of the urge to correct the other person? So what is the attitude behind? So go back and work on your attitude. Ask yourself this question: what is it that I want, hmm, as an outcome of this conversation? Right? Whether I want the other person to grow, or whether I want the other person to feel ashamed of themselves. Whether I want to, give it out to them, or whether I want to uplift them. So that first attitude check we have to make. What is the purpose behind this conversation? And if I feel that okay, this entire urge is just to give a sauce, give a piece of my mind to this other person, then go back and give a feedback to yourself, not the other person. Right? The attitude has to be set right, because then it will not work. Even if you give the feedback, you will end up more frustrated than you were before, because people are um, um, the people can actually, just as an antenna can catch the various waves, radio waves. People, they have antennas. They catch the intention waves. What is the intention of the person? And they feel repelled if they sense the wrong kind of intentions.
We got many waves last Sunday.
We got
many waves last Sunday.
okay.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, well, let me complete this, because 3 is. I'm just on the first 3. So right attitude. Got it? Makes sense? The next A is right authority. Am I the right person? I have the right attitude. I really sincerely want this person to grow from this suboptimal position or attitude or behavior. That is clearly my intention, and it's a good intention. But then, am I the right person? Do I have the authority? Now, when it comes to authority, you need 3 types of authority, 3 levels of authority to correct someone. First is, you should have the ethical authority. Second is managerial authority. And third is spiritual authority. So let me unwrap each of them. Ethical authority means, okay, I am here to try to uplift this other person or help this other person, correct this other person. But am I immune to making this mistake myself? Or I also very frequently make the same mistake, but then I'm good at lecture bazi. Ki bhai, I will correct you. Never mind whatever I do. No, then it won't make a difference. So first there should be ethical authority, that whatever I am going to teach to the other person, am I practicing myself? Right? Second is the managerial authority. Sometimes in an organization or in an institution, it so happens that if for example in the temple setup, it often happens many times, right? Someone someone in cleanliness department or kitchen department, right? Someone in the cleanliness department does some blunder, or is not discharged his duty properly, and then there's a mess, and then someone from the kitchen department directly goes and gives a sauce, not understanding that this person has a superior, he has an authority in the same department. So rather than directly telling him, I can approach the authority, and because there's a direct relationship, managerial relationship, I don't have a managerial relationship and I'm giving a managerial feedback. So without that if you give, it is not taken in the right spirit. So managerial authority. And then third is the spiritual authority, which is about do I have a relationship of love and trust with this person? I may have the ethical authority and the managerial authority, but without having a relationship of love and trust, there will be a big wall standing in between. So there's a spiritual connection of love and trust should be there to act as a medium for sending out that message. So right attitude, right authority, and let's come to the last one. Right action. Right action means what? That yes, you have figured out that I am doing it with the right intentions, and I do have the authority, the ethical, the managerial and spiritual authority. But the action, how I give the feedback, that's also very important. The why of feedback, the who of feedback, we have discussed. The why, the right attitude, the who, the right authority, right action, how I give it, that's also very essential. So there are certain do's and don'ts in offering feedback and correction. They say that praise should be given in public and correction should be given in private. Why? Because when you have a conversation of correcting someone in public, in general, there's a tendency to become defensive, to withdraw, to defend, to justify. And then you are never going to get access to the person's vulnerable part where they can think for themselves, reflect, maybe I could have done this better, maybe. So you won't reach that space. Every individual has a space of, like, I wanted to say, like, kind of a space where they are of vulnerability, that where they see that I have defects, but you won't talk about your defects in public, right? You need a sacred space where you can accept and work on your defects. So to create that space, you have to have a private conversation, not a public conversation, right? And secondly, they say that the sandwich formula, that's very generally spoken. So it's not just a ritual, it's a exercise that you do in your own mind also before giving the feedback. Okay, because you remember what Sati spoke about, the Mahattama and the Ati Asadhutama. There's a virtuous lens and the vicious lens. The 4 levels of virtuous lens where you kind of search for the good qualities. The table that we discussed. You search for the good qualities. You focus on the good qualities. You magnify the good qualities, and you invent good qualities in the other person. Right? And conversely, you neglect the bad qualities. You see the potential of the bad qualities to transform into good qualities, right? And you in different ways, try to see how this person essentially is a good being. So what is the good part in the other person? There must be, for every bad quality you see, you should be seeing 2 good qualities. Then you can assure yourself that this vision that you are having is not biased. Otherwise, if it may be biased by our own, because in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, everyone is skeptical. Not spectacle, skeptical. We have won the spectacle of skepticism. So that's quite spectacular. Everyone is skeptical about others and has very high regards of oneself. So that skepticism should not bias our vision of others. So therefore, we should work on. If I have to, if I see one fault, I need to find out two good qualities in the other person. So it's not just a ritual; it is a part of really helping the person and helping ourselves. So that is number two. First is give in private, not in public. Then second is see two good qualities, speak about them, and then speak about this thing, and the sandwich, positive, negative, positive. And the third thing is when you ask questions to the other person that uh, why did you do this? Why did this happen? When you ask questions like why and how did this happen? Why did you do it? Then you are tying people to the past. And when people are, asked to answer about, are held accountable for the past, the natural response is justify and defend. It was not me. It was the other person. It was the situation. They will bring up so many things because you are kind of making them accountable for the past. Instead, you can place your conversation in a positive direction. So anyhow, this particular thing happened. I'm not worrying about why this happened and why did you like. Those are things. How can we make it better in future? Right. So how could it have been done in a different way? How could you have done it in a different way? What were the other options and alternatives which you could have explored? You see the difference? One question is you shove them into a corner. Why did it happen and why did you do it? Then you are like in the corner and you just need to somehow jump out of this. Right? But when you give them space, okay, how could you have done it in a different way? How could it have been handled in a different way? So then you are allowing their intelligence to, rather than justify the past, explore the future. Right? So they won't go in a defensive shell. They will go into a creative shell, creative space. You are seeing the difference? And then they will come up with solutions and they will themselves call themselves, how stupid. I didn't realize this. I could have done this. So in any situation, you bring a result or a learning or a lesson. Either of them is good enough. So as a superior, if a person under you makes a mistake, you should not hold them, in the corner for that. You should ask them, look, any situation, if you bring me a result, I'll congratulate you. But even if you are a failure, I'll still congratulate you if you bring me a lesson. So therefore, when you give incentives for learning, then it helps people to, kind of see feedback in a positive light. So makes sense. Mohan says, I try to not to expose to them how much I am hurt, but one peaceful day I come with all the grudge and speak the bitter truth and start erupting. Yeah. So the idea is we cannot keep withholding things. We need to present it to people, but it has to be more processed.
I actually have a question about that. Like such situations are very evocative. Like they're very triggering. Like that time your intelligence goes to sleep. Then you just act impulsively. And then to process like such a AAA formula and like really apply it, like so then anger overcomes and then it's visible on your tongue and everywhere.
Yes. So therefore, Krishna says that बंधुर आत्मात्मनम तस्य येन आत्मैव आत्मना जिता अनात्मनम तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेत आत्मनः शत्रुवत्. That the mind is the best friend and the mind is the worst enemy. So depending on how do we orient it. So mind can be your best friend if you use the AAA formula. And the mind can be your best enemy when you allow it to use you as a agent of its anger. It's also a AAA formula. Anger, anger, anger. So depending on whether you just act impulsively, that's the animalistic response. So somewhere we need to start learning. Start, stopping even for a few seconds. So today, when you apply that formula, you may anyways erupt and give it out. But then at least you made a wiring that you will take 5 seconds before you erupt. You will have a 10-second of processing. But then that 10-second, that buffer will keep on increasing to a point where the mode of passion and ignorance become weaker and weaker, and the mode of goodness of contemplation and discrimination, it keeps increasing to a point where you can tell yourself pause and process and then act according. So that is a practice, that is sadhana that we need to do. Sadhana is not just fingering the beach. Sadhana is 24/7. Right? So let's move forward also simultaneously because we are going to complete this chapter today. So punishment is meant to destroy the fault of the other person, not the person himself. That's the bottom line. So then Lord Shiva restores the limbs and life of Daksha and the limbs of others, but with certain conditions. He gives life back to Daksha, but with a goat's head. He actually, with all of these Pusha and Bhrigu and Bhaga, who had committed offenses and lost their eyes and arms or mustache, whatever, he restores, but he keeps in a way that the scar is visible. How? It says, Lord Shiva says, since the head of Daksha has already been burned to ashes, but we need to give him a head. So he'll get the head of a goat. Why? Because, huh? Huh? Yeah, Nandikas was there, and Daksha was always saying meh, meh, meh. So he gives a goat's head, right? And he says Bhaga will be able to see his share of sacrifice through the eyes of Mitra. He will be able to see, लेकिन एक मित्र देवता है, who is by name is Mitra, but he is the god of death. So मित्र देव की आंखों से तुम अपना sacrifice देख सकते हो. So you need to depend on someone else. अरे क्या दिख रहा है पार्थ? Then you tell me, अरे सामने गाड़ी जा रहा है. I can see but through you. Right? Dependency आ गया. So then Pusha will be able to chew through the teeth of his disciples. So disciples can chew and he will digest. But if he is alone, he will have to satisfy himself eating dough made from chickpea flour. बेसन का पानी पी सकता है. But the devatas who agreed to give my share of sacrifice back will recover from all their injuries. And those whose hands were cut off will work through the hand of Pusha. Bhrigu will have the beard from the goat's head. उनकी मूंछ फाड़ दी थी ना, तो अभी बकरी की लगाएंगे, right? Chinese beard. नहीं क्या बोलते French beard. So French beard हो गया उनका. So this is how there is always scar. The scar mark of these offenses were there, and which is good, right? So that the person is reminded, let me not commit this again. So that scar mark is good for them and for others also to see. अरे इसको मित्रदेव की आंखों से देखना पड़ता है, इसको अश्विनी कुमारों के हाथों से काम करना पड़ता है, क्यों ऑफेंड किया, right? I'll not do it. So the Lord leaves some scar marks to remind us and others, isn't it? So then Daksha is revived to life by placing the goat's head. By, I don't know which plastic surgery was done, but he was revived, and then when he comes back to life, he's very, very repentant. He's crying tears, remembering his offenses and remembering that how his own daughter had to suffer and die because of his stubborn arrogance. Right. So now good sense prevails upon him. Now he's able to see things in the right perspective. So this is a litmus test of punishment. The punishment was given, but Daksha didn't become more kind of withdrawn or inimical. He became repentant. So when that punishment leads to such repentance and a desire to reform, that punishment has been effective. Right? So this happens to Daksha, and he then offers prayers to Lord Shiva, begs for forgiveness, and resolves to act in an appropriate way. And then he resumes his yajna, and lo and behold, Lord Vishnu appears. There's beautiful description of the form of Lord Vishnu is provided. Shamo hiranyarasano kakirita justo Nilalaka Brahmaramandita Kundalasya Shankhabja Chakra Sharachava Gadasi Charma Vyagrair Hiranmaya Bhujeriva Karnikara. So he has this beautiful blackish complexion of a rain cloud, and and it appears that is a lightning golden lightning which is flashing on that rain cloud in the form of his Pitambara dhoti. And he has a helmet which is dazzling like the sun, and from underneath the helmet there are beautiful soft curly and fluffy blackish locks of hairs which are cascading down his shoulders, and they are even covering his cheeks. So, and then on his ears there are these makara kundala who are swinging back and forth, and who are thus enhancing in the attraction towards the Lord's face. And in his hands he has shankha, the lotus flower, the chakra. He has 8 hands. He has arrows, the bow and arrows, gada, sword, shield. He has all of these golden bracelets. So his body appears like a beautiful blossoming Karnikara tree. So just as a tree has so many flowers, flowers are ornaments of the tree. Similarly, the Lord's form is like a beautiful tree, bluish blackish tree, which has all of the ornaments and his weapons. So this beautiful form is described. And then all the devatas and the priests, they individually offer prayers. So there are 21 verses of prayers, actually 22 verses, where the Bhrigu offers prayers, Daksha offers prayers, the Siddhas offer prayers, Lord Shiva offers prayers. Then you have Indra offers his prayer. Then the wives of the devatas offer prayers. Then the rishis who have gathered there, the priests offer prayers. Then you have the Yajamani, which is Prasuti, the wife of Daksha. She offers prayers. The Lokapalas, the governors of different planets, they offer prayers. And the Yogeshwaras, the mystic people, with people with mystic siddhis, they offer. Agni offers prayers. So all of these different devatas, they offer prayers. So it's not that okay, Lord has appeared and then there is one common prayer which everyone makes, the national anthem which is sung. No, everyone has a different prayer, which means that all of us are individuals and we have an individual, unique relationship with the Lord, and we have an unique way of expressing our love and gratitude towards the Lord. So in these verses, they are hinting to encourage us to develop a unique, individual, personal relationship with the Lord. And where there's a relationship, there's a conversation. And when you are having a conversation, you need not look at others, what others are saying. As per your relationship, you express yourself. So we see here everyone is in a unique way, different through their angle. They are offering their prayers. When Dakshayani Prasuti, she says, please restore the yajna, and my husband committed offense. Please forgive. So everyone, based on their relationship, their situation, they have special, unique prayer. So one of the verses which is very beautiful in this is Ayam Tvat Kathamrishta Piyush Nadya Mano Varna Klesha Davagni Dagda Trishartho Vagadho Na Sasmara Davam Na Nishkramati Brahma Sampanna Vanna. So it says that when there is a forest fire, and many animals are burnt in that forest fire, and all the animals are trying to flee away hither thither, just somehow to escape, and they go here seeing that here there's no fire, and then suddenly a tree falls and the fire spreads there also. So all these animals are in such a difficult, precarious situation. So the devatas, the siddhas, they are praying that actually the situation of people in this material world is like this. They are caught up in a forest fire. Many times you are sleeping and you see a fire erupt, and there's nothing you can do. But even if you are awake, fire is so contagious that when you run away from one place to another, fire comes there. So the siddhas, they are saying this material world is like a forest fire. Many times we don't even realize that there's a fire, and it consumes us. But sometimes even after realizing, you try to escape, you can't. But someone who knows the place where fire has no effect, where fire cannot torment, that person will be saved. So these siddhas are saying, but there are certain herds of elephants who know that there's an oasis, there's a water body, and they rush towards that water body, and they go and submerge themselves in the water body. And what happens? Two things happen. First is they receive protection from the fire, because fire can go anywhere but not into water, right? So they are first of all protected. Secondly, they are rejuvenated. When there's fire, you are thirsty, you are perspiring, you are scorched. So when you enter that cooling water, all of that thirst, all of that fatigue is removed. So this is what these siddhas are saying. These are the two effects of entering this nectarian river of Krishna Katha. In the material world, everyone is suffering through the pangs of threefold miseries: the forest fire, of Adhidaivika, Adhibhautika, Adhyatmik Klesh. But then there are certain fortunate souls who know the oasis, who know about the river, where that river is, and they rush towards that river. The more the forest fire is chasing them, the more they will, with great speed and enthusiasm, rush towards the river of Harikatha. The more they will take shelter of the river. So this is what the Siddhas are praying, and this is the theme which is common to many prayers. So thus these devatas pray, and the Lord is pleased, and then Lord Vishnu, he accepts the offering and the oblations from Daksha, is very satisfied, and then Lord Vishnu instructs Daksha in the final 6 verses. He says that someone who sees myself, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma as separate is having a defective vision. Because he says that I'm the super soul who's the origin, the cause of everything, and the source of everything. But then, for the sake of creation, I act through, Brahma for creation, for maintenance, I as Vishnu do it, and for destruction through Rudra. So someone who sees them as different from me, as actually separated from me, independent of me, he is having a defective vision. That so there are two things. Prabhupada speaks of Achintya Veda and Veda Tattva. He says someone who sees that, oh, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva is the one only. No, that also is wrong. They are empowered representatives of the Lord. There is difference. Lord Shiram Yatha Dadi Vikar, that the milk, when it transforms, it becomes yogurt. So Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, they are different. There is difference. But they are one in the sense that they are acting as agents of Lord Vishnu. So whatever they are doing is actually the agency of Lord Vishnu. Whatever they are doing is the will of Lord Vishnu. So in terms of the will, it is exactly what Lord Vishnu wants. That is what they are getting done. So therefore, there is oneness and there is difference both. So Lord says that if you see independently, then you may end up committing offenses. So look at them as my agents. And that is something which is important for us, to see the world and the people, especially devotees, in relationship with the Lord. So not seeing the limbs separate from the body. So Lord Vishnu says that these are Shiva and Brahma and the Devatas, they are like the limbs. The limbs help do the will of the body, of the person. So they are my limbs and I am getting certain functions done through them. So we should not see them as independent or separate or unimportant. Yeah. So this is how Lord Vishnu concludes his teachings, and this very beautiful chapter also concludes the entire section of this entire conflict. It actually, if you see, it began with a conflict, but now where has it ended? In the darshan of the Lord, and the Lord personally instructing everyone and everyone praying to the Lord. It is like it has brought everyone together. What began with a conflict where there was where there was misunderstanding and sectarian groups. This is Lord Shiva's group, this is Daksha's group, and there was fight. Now that entire episode has united everyone, brought everyone together with Krishna in the center. Right? So when Krishna is not in the center, there is division. and when Krishna comes in the center, there is unity. So this is how this story concludes on a happy note. So we'll also conclude today with a happy note. We'll begin a new episode of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the next session next week. Any questions?
Like if you want to remember the core teaching of this chapter, what is like the one key,
This entire section or this chapter?
like the whole episode?
Whole episode. The primary theme of this entire episode is that how when one is driven by ego, one ends up committing offenses. One ends up dividing the world into mine and other, and then commits offenses. And those offenses, they end up, being very, very destructive to oneself and others also. So that is something, that is a theme. And then despite one's offenses, great personalities, even their punishment is a mercy to help uplift us. So that's the thread which is running through. Plus minus many other things.
When did we start? March, I think. Shivaratri.
Oh yes, we started with the glories of Bhagavatam on Mahashivratri. Like this, the entire life can go just discussing Bhagavatam. Okay, do we have any questions? If not, we can just conclude today's session. Sure. So we will take more sessions in Anushakti Nagar as well. We'll come there. Thank you for inviting. Hare Krishna. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.